There are a lot of really dumb things that Joe Biden said at his presidential town hall, but there's also some callous things he said. And it signals to me that the Biden administration knows they are destroying the economy and they don't care. Joe Biden, speaking to a frustrated restaurant owner, said that he should pay staff more money if he wants to attract new staff after hearing how high COVID benefits are stopping people from seeking jobs and driving inflation. That's right, my friends. Inflation is on the rise. The data shows it. This could affect housing prices. It's going to make it harder for people to become independent. It's going to make it harder for them to buy goods. And it's going to force prices up, and it's artificially being done. As you know, the Biden administration has been running this $300 unemployment benefit thing, and it's been going on for some time. It's not just Biden, but Biden's continuing it. So people have no reason to go to work. Thus, these businesses are forced to pay substantially more than $15 an hour. This shows you the sheer ineptitude, stupidity, and incompetence of the Biden administration. Sorry, that's just reality. We know that the high unemployment is resulting in massive inflation. Let me send a message to all those on the left, those Democrats who are saying, just pay more. Nobody wants to work these jobs. Yes, this is true. No, it is. It is. Listen, we're hiring, and I've got way too many resumes and applications. We pay decently well. Tim, I'm lefty. A lot of people, might want to come work here and what's up. But we only have so many positions and we have people begging. We get emails like crazy, and much respect to everybody who wants to work here. Not everybody can. So we've been hiring. We'd love to hire everybody. It's not possible unless everyone becomes a member at timcast.com. Then we'll hire everybody. Sure. The point is, there are people who are willing to work for less money if the job is a fun job and it's something they're passionate about and it gives their life meaning. That's true. However, we actually don't pay. We pay substantially more than $15 an hour based on the salaries that we pay. The issue is there are a lot of people who don't want to go and work for fast food restaurants. There are a lot of people who don't want to work at Walmart. I absolutely respect not wanting to work at these places. However, there are also things that people need to do. And some jobs need to be done. Not every job. I'm not a big fan of fast food, but there are people who have that. There's a demand for it. So right now what's happening is demand for these fast food restaurants, for these fast casual restaurants is the same, but supply is being artificially limited by the actions of the Biden administration. Now, we can argue it's all part of the Great Reset and their climate change stuff. And they're like, we're going to destroy the economy and destroy your life for our ideology. And that may be. Or it could just be that Biden is as dumb as a box of rocks. And he's like, we're giving unemployment. Why don't you just pay more? Let me explain something to y'all. You can't just pay more. OK? If someone, technically you can, but listen, if they're giving people $15 to $16 an hour in unemployment, you can't offer $15 an hour because they're going to be like, why? I get that for free now. What's the job going to get me? Free Taco Bell? Well, I already get free Taco Bell. I get $15 an hour from the government. Okay. How about $17 an hour? You play a hard bargain, but that basically means you're offering me $2 an hour. You get it? If I'm getting $15 an hour for nothing and you offer me $20 an hour, you're basically saying that if I add 40 hours a week to my life to work at Taco Bell, I get $5 an hour because I'm already getting free money. Tough sell. You could maybe double it, $30 an hour. Well, now I have twice as much money. Still, how much is someone's time really worth? The reality is, for a lot of people, time is priceless. You can never get it back. So when given a universal basic income or guaranteed income, people will choose to live very humbly if it means they can kick back, sip some pina coladas, and not have to do a whole lot of work. You know what? It's not all bad. And there is the reality of Americans being overweight, gluttonous, body positivity, all that stuff. How about you go in your backyard, you chop some wood, and you use that for your fire, and you be responsible for yourself? I'm not saying everybody can. Not everybody can. I'm saying, let's reduce, reuse, and recycle. Hey, how about that? However, whatever is happening, assuming it is unintentional, then we have a failure of a moronic presidency that is destroying the American economy while China certainly is not suffering that fate. So I can't imagine this is actually the consequence of some greater global initiative by a cabal of conspiracists, because China isn't being constrained. They're growing rapidly and polluting like crazy. No, this is a psychotic stupid administration that doesn't understand what's happening and does not care. That's why Joe Biden can look this man in the face and say, just pay him more money. You want to see what happens? There's a ripple effect. Take a look at this story from timcast.com. Taco Bell's menu suffers due to supply shortages. The popular drive-through Mexican chain quietly noted the news online. And it's not just Taco Bell. Many other outlets are suffering shortages. There's a chicken shortage, there's a beef shortage. This is the thing that Biden doesn't understand because he's not smart, right? It's not just fast food. It's not just restaurants. Because those are the surface layer levels of supply, we notice it. Okay, so there's a diner near me, and I mentioned this several times, closing at 5 p.m. That shocked me. It's a diner. I mean, diner is supposed to be 24 hours, right? Closes at 5 p.m. and half the restaurant is already closed off. They have no staff. They don't have enough cooks in the kitchen, which is funny. It's the opposite of what people normally say. Not enough. And there's not enough wait staff. So they've just reduced how much they can actually supply the demand. This is ultimately going to result in massive infrastructure collapse, massive shortages across the board. Let me explain. You go to the diner, you can see the diner. You go to the diner, you go for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. What you don't do is you don't go to the steel mill. You don't walk to your neighborhood steel mill and boop, and say, how many employees do you got? You don't see that in the immediate. What you do see is the secondary effect, and that's Taco Bell. Taco Bell has shortages as well. All these fast food restaurants. So we know when we go to Taco Bell and they're like, we're hiring, we're desperate, we're struggling. And you see these stores where it's like the signs on the door saying like, we all quit. You know that's the first layer of disruption because people are getting paid more by the government. Then, eventually, Taco Bell puts out a notice. Due to shortages, we can't supply certain items. Because here's what happens next. You might not go to the beef factory, the factory farm, and so you don't see the shortages and what's happening. Taco Bell and these restaurants are desperately trying to mitigate the damage. They're offering up specials on chicken chicken wings are in shortage too. But they'll be like, hey, we got a big bargain bin on these items. And that could help alleviate the shortage. People might say, I really want a cheeseburger. But our chicken sandwiches are half off. In which case they're like, okay, I'll have the chicken sandwich instead. And then that saves some of the supply of beef. But eventually the beef runs out. Eventually, when people aren't working at the beef factory farm, there's no beef. When there's no beef, there's no Taco Bell. And so here we are. Let me actually just read the story for you guys. The Daily Mail reports restaurant owner John Lanny asked Biden what he was going to do to get more people back to work. The president responded by telling Lanny it was down to him to pay more workers. The president was speaking at a half-empty town hall in Cincinnati when he was asked by Ohio restaurant owner John Lanny how he planned to resolve the labor crisis unfolding across America. Lanny owns the Thunderdome Restaurant Group, which has 39 restaurants across the country, but said he, like thousands of others, can't find staff willing to take jobs because they earn more to do nothing and claim COVID payments. The result is fast-moving inflation that is already presenting itself in stores, bars, and restaurants across the country. And I'll add this too, one thing I missed. Let's say the restaurant says, fine, we'll pay $30 an hour. Now, they used to be paying $10. They used to pay $10. They have just tripled their labor costs, desperate to get anyone to do the job. And they said, we found it. $30 an hour is that sweet spot. And now people are starting to say, man, I'll take $30 an hour to sell cheeseburgers. And so now let's do some math. If one person can make one cheeseburger, can make, let's just give it really simplified math. I know it's not good analogy math, but one cheeseburger per hour. The restaurant requires $5 in materials for the cheeseburger and $10 in labor cost for the cheeseburger, which means it's $15 for the cheeseburger. All right, I know not good math, but not good analogy, but you get the general idea. In order to make a profit for the restaurant, then and so let's put it this way. All costs overhead for the burger, let's say it's $15. The restaurant's going to want to sell it for $16 to make a profit for the restaurant, which basically means the owner, that's where his cut comes from. $16 for that burger. $10 of that is labor. You're paying someone $10 an hour to make a burger. Now, $30 an hour is the minimum people are willing to get paid to do it. Now the burger is going to cost $36. Somebody walks in and says, I'm not spending $36 on a burger, and they don't buy it. It's impossible. It is impossible. Biden is burning this country to the ground. There was a barbecue joint not too far from me. I posted this photo on Instagram as well. They said, due to the price of beef, we will no longer be serving brisket for the time being. They said, it isn't worth it for us to sell at cost, and it's too expensive to sell for what we need to charge. Because I think it was like $20 for a sandwich versus like $10 for chicken. So they said, we're not going to sell it. Nobody's going to want it. We're going to sit on it, and it's going to waste our money. Think about that. That's crazy, isn't it? We could buy the beef for double the cost, but we know we can't sell it. So what's the point? We just won't do it. Look at this. Quote, the entire industry, among other industries, continues to struggle to find employees. How do you and the Biden administration plan to incentivize those that haven't returned to work yet? Hiring is our top priority right now. Lanny, who owns restaurants in Ohio, where the unemployment rate is still 5.2%, despite ending the benefits early, asked the president. In response, Biden wiped his hands on the issue and said it was the industry's responsibility. He then claimed the government had done enough to keep restaurants open during the pandemic. Oh, this is amazing. He's like, you remember we paid billions to keep you open, huh? Bro, y'all shut everything down. The least you could do was cover the basic costs, but no, food spoiled. A bunch of these restaurants were just gone. You know, I guess we got a lot of people on this planet. I would not be surprised if Joe Biden ideologically was just giddy with glee that they're burning down the private sector. For one, it gives them more authoritarian control. Two, all the climate change people are probably happy, right? The earth is healing, the New York Times said. Lanny later said that Biden didn't answer the question, and other restaurant owners said the response showed the president does not understand the labor crisis unfolding in his country. Inflation is accelerating, the Wall Street Journal reports. Higher used auto prices continue to push consumer price index up, along with increases for new autos, airline fares, and apparel. Everything's way more expensive, man. You know, so we're out here in the middle of nowhere, and we have people flying all the time for the Timcast IRL show. We recently had a guest who was went out to the store to grab some food. Some people don't like to go out to eat, especially with what's going on. I don't know. Sometimes you go on a trip and you're like, you guys want to go out to eat? Now let's just go to the store and buy some stuff and put it in the fridge. And they came back and said, I didn't realize how expensive all the food was out here. And I said, out here? When was the last time you actually went to a grocery store? Oh, good point. I remember it was last year. It was late last year. So it was it was almost a year ago. And I went to the store and we had the shopping cart maybe like half full, and it was hundreds of dollars. And I was just like, something's wrong. And I'm like, no, that price can't be right. I was like, something's wrong with here. Cause like we didn't expect to spend that. It was like we got some stuff for like barbecuing or something. I can't remember. Or for making burgers. No, the prices were all correct. They're just skyrocketing. Joe Biden knows it. Kamala Harris knows it. They all know it. And it's not just food that's going to go up. U.S. inflation continued to accelerate in June at the fastest pace in 13 years. That's from the Wall Street Journal. The Labor Department said last month, consumer price index increased 5.4% from a year ago, the highest 12-month rate since August 2008. The so-called... since the economic crisis. Great. The so-called core price index, which excludes the often volatile categories of food and energy, rose 4.5% from a year before. The index measures what consumers pay for goods and services, including clothes, groceries, restaurants, meals. You get the point. They say it increased a seasonally adjusted 0.9% in June from May, the largest one-month change since June 2008. Okay. I don't know if you guys are prepping, but I guess you can say I'm prepping. Not for the end of the world. Usually when you say prepping, people assume you think zombies are coming. No, I'm prepping for the economic collapse. I'm prepping for the slow rolling economic collapse that we're literally watching. We are seeing shortages of food across the country. Fast food restaurants, I think Wendy's, Taco Bell, a couple of KFC, a couple other places. There was a commercial I saw where they were like, there's a wing shortage, so we're selling thighs. And it's like, do people know what's happening right now? I want to explain to all y'all. The Biden administration knows they're doing this. Like, the unemployment benefits are making it so people don't work. This is UBI. This is exactly what I've been saying. I'm proud to say I was completely right about UBI. Hey, take that one, Joe Rogan. No, I'm just kidding, Joe. No, but Joe was asking me about UBI. He's a big proponent of it. And there's these people who seem to think that they're like, with universal basic income, the economy will improve. And I'm like, if people don't have to work, why would they? You are giving people, it's a free ride to the top of the mountain. It's a lift chair. Why would they climb the mountain if they don't have to? They can go to the top, take what they want, and leave. That's what's happening. And they know what's happening. It's universal basic income effectively, and people won't work because they don't have to. Now, I love this one. Check this out. CNBC. Biden's inflation speech reflects concerns that rising prices will hurt Democrats in 2022. See, this is why I say I don't think it's about climate change, the Great Reset, whatever it is. I think Joe Biden's just a moron because they know this is going to come back to haunt them and it's going to get bad. They know it. They're not smart enough to do anything about it. CNBC says President Joe Biden addressed voters who are worried about inflation on Monday, arguing that his domestic spending plans would help keep prices low over the next decade. The short speech reflected a growing concern among Democrats that rising prices could hurt them in next year's midterm elections. Economists believe the price hikes are only temporary. The question for politicians is, how temporary? They're not temporary. That's the stupidest argument ever. What they're basically saying is like, oh, it's just we're playing catch up, right? Because we shut down the economy and reopened it, and now there's a big surge in demand. So that's causing prices to artificially go up for the short term. Once demand normalizes, they'll go back down. Deflate? Yeah, maybe. But nobody's working. Maybe what they're expecting to happen is after they strangle the economy and destroy a good portion of the small business, then people will be forced to buy from the likes of Amazon, and then Amazon can get rid of their competition and lower their prices. Is that what you think is going to happen? Is that the plan? It very well may be. They're strangling out small business with everything they're doing, and it's going to hit everyone. From the New York Times, rising rents threaten to prop up inflation. Officials at the Federal Reserve and White House thought fast price gains would pass. Rent increases could make it a slow fade. Let's go back to that burger analogy. $36 burgers, because you got to pay $30 an hour to get someone to work that job. The burger now costs $36. Why? $5 in materials, $30 in overhead and labor. And then you want to turn a profit, you'll say, please, just $1. Now, most restaurants are going to say a 1 in 36 margin. That's not good. Restaurants operate on razor-thin margins as it is, so maybe they'll take the free dollar. But that means they need to sell hundreds of burgers to pay the business owner. The guy who owns it probably works there. Or maybe not. Maybe the profit isn't really what's important for the business to keep functioning. But if there's no one, if the owner himself isn't making money, you can incorporate his salary into there, but then we're basically going to say the burger's going to cost $40. Anyway, I digress. The burger analogy. Well, now there's a guy who owns a building, and he charges $1,000 a month for rent for his studio apartment just on the outskirts of the city. Rent is kind of high. Well, I shouldn't say it's kind of high. That's like, I don't know, 1,000, moderate for some areas, depending on where you are in like New York. A studio apartment can be more than that substantially, but if you're in the outskirts, it could get lower. Out in the middle of nowhere where I'm at, it's like 3-bedroom is like $1,250. So now the landlord says, it's $1,000 per month for the studio and for all the studios. Well, he's got to hire a maintenance crew. The maintenance crew comes to him and says, guy, we're not getting paid enough to do this anymore. He says, what do you mean? We're paying you really well. You get $25 an hour. And he goes, well, to be completely honest, Wendy's is paying $30 an hour. And more importantly, regardless of that, I can't afford the burgers anymore. It used to be that I could buy a burger or two every hour I worked. Now I can't even buy one. Look, if I'm going to feed my family and bring them to restaurants and things like that, you got to pay me more. Now that guy who normally got $25 an hour is saying, I need a comparable compensation increase. And that is somebody who's going to maintain that building. So the landlord says, look, man, we don't make that much money off rent. I can't pay you that much. And they says, then charge more in rent. And the landlord says, I can't. We're locked in. These people have a lease for the rest of the year. This is going to hit hard because now you're going to have maintenance crews leaving, saying, I quit. The landlord's going to say, I can't charge people more. So what do landlords do? Sell. Who are they going to sell to? Big investment firms that can handle those costs and losses. This is going to start shifting home ownership and building ownership to major corporations and investment firms that can afford it. And it will absolutely contribute to the inflation costs of food and resources. I think the path we're on is really obvious. The end result should be very obvious to you. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. The only problem is, I can say you will own nothing, but come on, guys. I'll own something. Oh, that's right. The privileged elites. You think people who are well off are going to be suffering? It's the regular people who are going to be suffering from all of this. I'm not going to sit here and act like my business isn't successful. I know it is. And it worries me. The only reason my business works is because I have people like you who are capable and able to support it. So here's what I mean to say. The ultra rich, they're not going to let their wealth disappear. They're going to own everything, but you will own nothing. And when you own nothing, independent grassroots organizations and many well-off businesses will suffer for it. So here's what I mean to say, not to overly disparage myself to pretend like I'm some great elite or anything like that, because I do think we would suffer if we lost membership, if people couldn't afford. We get messages from people all the time saying, I can't afford it anymore, and that's worrying. And, in order for us to grow this business, we need your support. But what I mean to say is, the people who will own everything, they're not going to work for it. The smart, rich people are going to take their resources, invest it into owning, not doing, and make you do the work, and they'll own it. We're headed towards oligarchy. And it's going to be extreme. And that's a scary thing to me. I'd love nothing more than to just take the van down by the river, go fishing. But what I see happening in this future is that the average person will not be allowed to own things. Not because they'll say you literally can't, but because the economic system will be built in such a way that it'll be impossible to do so. I was looking at property in Ukraine years ago, wondering, how much does it cost? It's got to be super cheap for property in Ukraine, right? Nope. Houses and apartments are comparable to the cost of houses and apartments in the United States. And I asked my friend, why is that? How can anybody who makes $400 a month, because Ukrainians don't make that much, afford buying this massive property? My friend said they can't. It's owned by all the ultra rich, the oligarchs. They control the population that way. You want to live in my house? It's effectively corporate rule. They gave up communism but absorbed oligarchy. And they call them oligarchs. That's scary, man. I don't want to live in that world. And that's why I've actually long been a proponent of, I don't believe in the idea of maximum wage, but I do believe wealth disparity is a huge problem that needs to be solved. We don't need people who are a million times wealthier than the average person. Hey, I'm a little bit lefty in that regard. So here's what I hope, that all of you watching content like this can do so. By doing so, will prepare yourselves and protect yourselves in the event of whatever it is to come. And I'll put it this way. If I want to keep running my business, having success with what I do, it's only possible if you are successful. I'd like a functioning economy to keep existing. But I don't know, man. I don't have all the answers. So forgive me if it was a little crass when I was trying to make my point about, I know that I'll be successful. What I meant to say is there are going to be people who own things, and they're going to do everything in their power to take away from other people. The people who have money now are probably going to be safe. And I'll just be upfront, although perhaps a little crass. So apologies. I didn't mean to be disrespectful in that regard. I'm just trying to warn you that there's going to be people of means and success and wealth. They're going to be fine. That's worrisome. Because we need, I believe in freedom. I believe in liberty. I believe in the right of the individual to pursue happiness. And I believe in meritocracy. And this end result is feudalism. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.